Welcome back to our long-term plan hearings and submissions. I would like to welcome to the table Greg Lang, who is presenting on the Wairarapa Five Towns Trails Network.
Kia ora koutou, everyone. Great to be here. Good to see you all in your deliberations. Not your deliberations, your hearings. I'd just like to acknowledge your worship and councillors. Thank you for the opportunity of being here. It's a great privilege to be able to present to you. I'm here in my capacity as chair of the Wairarapa Trails Action Group and the newly formed Five Towns Trail Trust. And with me is Jacinda Johnson, who you all know, who is from Wellington NZ and leads the Regional Economic Development Team in the Wairarapa. So we're here to invite you to be part of the biggest social, environmental, cultural and economic game changer Wairarapa has seen. 90 kilometres of off-road signature trails with over 100 kilometres of experienced loops linking Wairarapa's 5 towns with Wellington's CBD.
Good morning, team. You all know me. I'm from Wellington NZ. I work in the Regional Economic Development Department. What you probably don't know is that that's less than 10% of what Wellington NZ does as an agency across the region, including events, tourism, workforce attraction. We've got the Film and Screen Office, Regional Trails Framework and International Trail and Attraction. So really, this is a fantastic body and an opportunity for a part of you to drive this forward collectively. Next slide. Thanks, Robin. As you know, a significant part of being in the regional ED team is driving forward the Regional Economic Development Plan for the Greater Wellington region and a relatively new concept. First published in 2022 under the newly formed Wellington Regional Leadership Committee. For those in the room that aren't aware, that's a new regional body that's made up of all of the mayors and iwi leaders of every district across the Greater Wellington and Whāwhenua. And that is how we align our resources, priorities and speak to central government with a single voice. We've just finished the first refresh of that plan and it's about to be signed off by the Regional Leadership Committee. The initiatives have reduced from 37, but the good news is we are retaining 5 Wairarapa initiatives in that plan, including the Five Towns Trail Trust, leveraging the Dark Skies opportunity, water resilience, promoting food and fibre and workforce and skills attraction. That plan is funded by the regional targeted rate and then Greater Wellington passes that money on to Wellington NZ to drive forward the plan. Now, in order for us to drive it forward, we needed a lead agency and in the absence of last year's aligned funding, we went and advocated to the Leadership Committee in Wellington NZ for funding to develop the Five Towns Trail Trust and the board so that we would have a legal entity to drive this forward with collective funding streams. And that really presents an opportunity to accelerate that investment through the cycle of the next LTP.
Cool. Looking back, we certainly acknowledge Carterton District Council's assistance in enabling the master plan to be developed and also assistance with the shovel-ready funding to build the bridge over the Taraniko River. Currently, we are connecting the Rimataka Cycle Trail with Featherston. And we're also acting on the first recommendation of the master plan, which is to set up a trust to deliver the Five Towns Trail network. We've appointed an exciting bunch of trustees. Myself, who you know, my role really is as leader and the enabler to bring it together. You know Joel Nalturi from Ngāti Kahu Kurawhiria, passionate about supporting whānau marae and hapu. Bruce McCullum, a very, very successful businessman who's passionate about the region and has made some time to be part of this trust and help deliver this network. And also Joe Galanders. Joe is a fantastic strategist, great planner, and was instrumental in the development of the master plan. And that skill set covers all the bases, doesn't it?
Absolutely. So I'm just here to provide reassurance that what Wellington NZ is looking for in these lead agencies is those that have a link to iwi, those that have a link to the commercial and industrial sector, and also those community leaders with skills, for example, in planning. So from their perspective, they're really assured and quite excited about supporting the trust going forward.
Yeah. So what we invite you to do is to be part of this process. You've been part of it so far. You've got skin in the game. You've got an investment in it. It's a $32 million project where all the project build is going to be externally funded. we would like you to appoint a trustee to the Five Towns Trail Trust, retain the Regional Trails Coordinator for the Wairarapa, and actively participate in Wairarapa Trail Action Group meetings and activities, and collaborate with this new trust on funding opportunities via central government, and just acknowledge your support in your long-term plan with an annual $20,000, which equates to $1.95 per person in the district per year, 3 cents a week. And just this is to fund a project team, not build costs. So Five Towns Trail Trust will, you need to know this because you're going to be investing in it. It's going to provide you strong governance practices and regional collaboration as a lead agency for trail development. It's going to implement a fundraising strategy targeting sustainable funding sources for trail development. It's going to complete a website, brand development with regular public communications, develop a membership base, fee paying and bequests, and establish a work plan for stage 1 of the trail network development, which is land access, bridges, etc. And induct and support council appointees as trustees, and create a formal mechanism for council relationships and reporting, and also leverage on networks throughout New Zealand, Wellington as well, and councils and regional trail frameworks throughout the country. So we're quite happy to take some questions.
Thank you both very much for your submission and for the fulsome submission that you assess. Okay, Ron? You need a drink? You kind of, yep. Opening the questions from any committee members. Anyone have any questions? Oh. Thank you both very much. I think the information in here.
Thank you. Just closing, I want to reassure you that we're there to make it happen, and we want to make it happen. And if you're going to support this project, which I hope you will, please do it because you want to. Don't put a caveat in there that you'll only support it if the other councils do, because ultimately going forward, so many regional projects fall over because there's a caveat there and one council doesn't. So support it because you want to. Carterton's in the middle, and it'll be a game changer for you guys. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Next to our table is Roger Boulter. So Roger, you have 7 minutes in total, 7 minutes. Robin will let you know 7 minutes if you would like any questions. If you do go your full 10 minutes, then there won't be any time for questions.
I think I'll be well before that.
Awesome. So welcome, and over to you to speak to your submission.
Well, first of all, I'm just mentioned until 6 weeks ago, I was an urban and transport planning consultant. I retired, so I'm officially retired now. I'm not senior as a consultant. I've got an urban and regional planning degree, and I have been, and in some cases still am, a member or a chartered member of several professional bodies. One of the specialist areas which I've worked in is planning for cycling. And I started in the late 80s, and I led developments in Britain in the early 90s. And in New Zealand in the early 2000s, I did a study which the Ministry of Transport took into their National Walking and Cycling Strategy. I co-authored the Cycle Network and Route Planning Guide in 2004 and won awards and various things. Now, the only reason I'm mentioning this is because I want to get across a very important point, that I am into this as a professional and not as an advocate for cycling or walking. And I think as a professional, you have to be dispassionate. Several times in my career, people have complimented me on having a passion for cycling. I don't. You have to be dispassionate and see that, especially if you're working for a local council, you're working for the general public good. And looked at in that sense, I have to say walking is always a lot more important than cycling. I would strongly defend both. Some people see cycling as a bit frivolous. It isn't. It's very important. I would say walking is far more important. Now, there is a rather unusual history I don't want to major on, but it's brought about the situation that, well, the Carterton 2016 walking and cycling strategy was to have been mainly about retrofitting footpaths, and that was to have been its main focus. And yes, rather unfortunate history won't dwell on, but the upshot of that was the attention went on to bike trails, and you have got a footpath policy document that council have paid for, but have never used. And you've got that in the 2 appendices to my submission. And there's also an unmet need there, which I would suggest is actually more important than the bike trails. So, you know, this has been paid for by ratepayers, but it's never been used. I have in my past career delivered successful bike trails, and one characteristic of them is they always have some sort of head start, which pretty well defines the route before you start. So a rail trail is a classic. You know where it's going to go. It's going to go on the disused rail form. An old coach road, a forest park where you've got complete freedom to put the paths where you want. A river with parkland along it. That was the one I delivered in Birmingham. It was very successful, but you already had. I think with the Five Towns Trail, and by the way, I do wish it all the best, but it had the problem that there isn't an obvious route. And so you ended, so the planning became quite disjointed. Carterton, I understand, is working on 2 bits of trail, the Waihina Bridge and Clareville Link. And I think the Clareville Link could be some use, you know, with as access to sports facilities, but they really make sense if you can connect them all up. And you haven't got the assurance that you're going to be able to do that. So the other thing is, although the Clareville Link is some use, I think it's nothing like as important as decent footpaths, and that has to be the priority. The long-term plan says that those trails are for people travelling across the district. You don't know whether you're going to be able to get a route through the whole district. I did do some work on that. And I'm quite happy to let council see a report about 29 pages, trying to fill this gap of how on earth could you get it through Carterton. Benefits. I don't think you can automatically assume that because some of the other great rides have got benefits, Carterton will reap the same benefits. Generally, the ones that provide most economic benefits are the ones that go to remote regions. The Central Otago Rail Trail is a classic. If you hadn't had the cyclists going in there, you didn't have people going in there spending money. The cyclists are a relatively prosperous demographic. And so that's why it was successful. Many of the other great rides are too, but we already have people who come in and spend money. They come in by car. You might have some of them coming by bike instead. So there would be some benefit, but it's nothing like the dramatic benefit. And as for the benefits claimed in the master plan, I know from years of working in cost-benefit analysis, it's always arguable. And you really do need to subject it to scrutiny. And you don't just trust these expert consultants who say there's going to be benefits. So anyway, my concern isn't so much, as I say, I'm not against the bike trail. It's more prudence with ratepayer money. There is quite a bit of risk putting it in the bike trails, and also priorities. You might be wondering why the 2.4 million trails money into footpath retrofits. What we should have had, if the history had gone as it should have done, is that through 2017, we would have been trying out different investment levels in different types of footpath retrofit programme, so that by the end of the year, we would come up with a figure to put in the 2018 long-term plan. Now, we don't have the time now. That's why I've picked 2.4. I'm just simply saying, if you've seen fit to spend it on bike trails, you'd get a lot more value if it was spent on footpath retrofits. Right, I'm drawn to a close. The other good news is that about what I'm suggesting is some of the ideas close to council's heart could still be covered. We're not doing the laneways in the town centre anymore, but there's nothing better for the prosperity and well-being of the town centre than good pedestrian spaces. We're not doing the schools link project anymore, but walking to school is a very high priority on the prioritisation criteria I've got in the appendix. So in conclusion, I commend the general direction of this long-term plan, going for things that are less glamorous but more important, like roading renewal, wastewater treatment. If you put, my suggestion of putting money into a footpath retrofit programme, that will also be something that's important but not glamorous. So, any questions?
Thank you. We have a minute or so for questions. Questions from any of the committee members?
Just thank you.
Sorry, it's
Roger, at the risk of asking you to go on for hours, which I don't. Your footpath, are you talking about coexistence on footpaths with some sort of separation of?
No, it's what I'm talking about is providing footpath infrastructure. The issue of sharing footpaths is really a separate issue.
Okay.
And notice that I've said to Kirsty McCarthy, the walking the wheels strategy, you're biting off a very, very difficult subject. And, you know, I don't think it's a good idea to just put everything on footpaths. So really, I'm talking about provision of the infrastructure.
Okay.
As for going on at length, we have.
I think that answered your question. Thank you so much, and thank you for the work that you have done previously as well. Appreciate it, Roger.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time today and for your lengthy submission and all the appendix. They made a very great reading.
And if you
So
want any further discussions on it, happy.
Yeah, absolutely. We know where to find you. Thank you so much. I would now like to welcome to present a submission is Pene Will from the Carterton Historical Society. So Pene, you were
And Cimone.
and Cimone, thank you. You both just missed earlier that there's 10 minutes in total.
Yep.
So 7 minutes to speak and then allow some time for questions if you would like questions. And questions will only be about your submissions. Welcome, over to you both.
Thank you. Tēnā koutou katoa. Our colonial start in Carterton forms a crucial part of our local history. Everywhere we look are reminders of Charles Rookin Carter and his legacy, and it's essential that we celebrate and honour this heritage. The reality for CDHS in recognising Carterton's colonial beginnings, it was the only organisational focus for many years, with no acknowledgement of manu whenua or understanding the important local Māori presence in Taratahi Carterton. This was a major barrier to building key relationships, predominantly with CDC and local hapu. And that stance largely detracted from the fine work that CDHS has been doing to preserve our colonial history. But that was then. CDHS has since moved on, and we now sit in a more progressive space. We're optimistic for stronger key stakeholder relationships with CDC and Huranui o Rangi Marae and Te Kahukura Āwhiti as local hapu.
Okay, this strong shift under an active leadership team led by Pene Will and a strong volunteer team sees CDHS taking a more inclusive organisational approach, including a new key objective to stabilise and strengthen our cultural integrity with the community embracing and uplifting our diverse cultures and our unique Māori heritage through the sharing of all local histories and heritage stories. That's a monumental step towards celebrating a more diverse community. As society members, we've undertaken professional development around gathering local oral histories. We're exploring other capability building, that's professional development, that will be extended to communities so the impact is more greatly felt. We're developing new partnerships with community and government funders, so our community events have targeted but broader appeal. Steps are being taken to work alongside Huranui o Rangi and respectfully seek their guidance with retelling of local Māori stories, and we have an optimistic goal of co-hosting future events alongside them. We don't want to service our own needs by leveraging the Māori stories or culture. We're treating carefully, slowly, so the relationship builds on trust and confidence. It's about respect and reciprocity. To ensure organisational sustainability, we're diversifying our income streams, attracting sponsorships and expanding our membership. We're not just a society for historians. This year, we're looking to engage young families and children through targeted community events and supporting local schools in developing their local history programs as required under the new history curriculum.
We listened to advice from former Mayor Greg Lang to create an online presence. Cooperating with Wairarapa Library Services, we're cataloguing and eventually we'll digitise our collection. Our website is currently being built. We're also taking steps to strengthen our relationship with Manu Whenua, and we're aligning with Mayor Ron's Wero. We are rising to these challenges. Community has enjoyed CDHS hospitality, from the Heritage Walk, plaque unveilings, exhibitions including Family Heritage Month, collaborating with Carterton Library to celebrate their 150th anniversary, and connecting with local schools. We're also leaning into Kapai's Tikiritio Waitangi training, Stan Walker's community korero, and Matariki Hiranga. The local benefits are huge and we're wanting them to grow. We acknowledge the support that CDC has already provided, from exhibition space for Family Heritage Month, free use of the courthouse, access to library staff and training around cataloguing and archiving. And we share the korero as part of People and Places Advisory, all valuable in building collaborations. For this investment of time and energy, we thank you, and we are optimistic for ongoing financial support that allows CDC to be more vested in our continued success as a society while preserving our irreplaceable collection for all to enjoy. We also extend our services to CDC to catalogue any archival records that CDC may hold.
Now we seek an MOU, a financial partnership. CDHS hopes to become a cornerstone of Carterton's local tourism. The work has already begun with the heritage plaques and self-directed heritage walks that bring visitors from all around the region. But we risk losing our taonga, our artefacts, if more financial backing can't be sourced to protect our collection and keep it in our district. CDHS is optimistic that with Aratoi and Cobblestones both receiving financial support from CDC, we are well placed as the only comprehensive Carterton-based heritage organisation that celebrates our district's past. We welcome a partnership with CDC and you all as CDHS members. $30 annual membership, demonstrate personal commitment, strengthening our vision as being kaitiaki. So that's guardians of Carterton's diverse cultures as we discover, understand, value, respect and share our district's rich heritage. As a note, our most generous donor is of Chinese ethnicity, a former Carterton resident who now lives in Auckland.
We leave you with this gesture of trust. Last year, we were contacted by a chap in the UK. He had a silver tea service gifted to his by the Carterton community in acknowledgement of his service as station master at Carterton Railway Station. The tea service was a treasured family heirloom that he wanted to permanently and safely preserve. Last year, he personally travelled to New Zealand and delivered and entrusted it to our Carterton Society rooms for our safekeeping as its permanent guardians. So to help us preserve this and many other treasures entrusted to CDHS, please consider our submission favourably.
Thank you very much.
Do you have any questions for us?
Committee members, are there any questions?
I have one, just in terms of finance, your submission talks about the rent on the premises. What you're looking for the council to help you cover?
Well, my stock answer would be I couldn't possibly comment. But what we are looking for is a means of protecting and preserving the collection. And without premises, we can't do that. So ultimately, we need finances to be able to protect those taonga. So yes, I suppose in reality, in order to protect it, we need to have a place to live.
Yeah, thank you. Just following on from that, that was my question as well, because as part of the deliberation, we're looking at cost to ratepayers and going forward. So an MOU is one thing, but the drop down is what are the implications? And as Councillor Lawrence said, or Steve said, that you referred to the annual rent per annum. To give us an indication, what proportion of that are you looking for? Outgoings, do you have a number in mind that we would put alongside an MOU to give us some guidance when we're deliberating?
Well, we know that Cobblestones is receiving 7.5 a year and the Aratoi are receiving 10K a year. We also understand that they are significantly bigger premises, much more to think about in terms of overheads. So that would be the top end, but anything below that would certainly help service us in terms of what we're looking for.
Thank you.
So I think following on from those two questions, it would be very useful for the committee as we enter into deliberations to have a number. Putting you on the spot. I mean, you must have actually, you've obviously done your budgeting and your finances, so it would be very useful.
Our operations expenses are in the vicinity of 14,000 a year. So anything up to that would be very much appreciated. But if that was considered, we are very grateful for anything that you are able to contribute towards that.
And my next question is, how long were you looking for an MOU?
Indefinitely would be awesome.
Okay. And if the committee doesn't, or the council don't give you an MOU, you are still able to apply for the community funding, which you have done successfully over the last few years. So that is still an option from community funding that is available.
That is project related, of course, but yes. Thank you.
So,
Question?
In a nutshell, then your paper 20 page 28, 45 on ours is that your rent is 11,960 per annum. Summation, you said that will probably preserve the time.
Yes.
So I take it that you're saying any contribution to that number.
Correct.
What you're looking at, and you are looking for multi-year funding.
That's
through
true.
a memorandum of understanding.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
Councillor Newman, I know you haven't got your hand up, so I thought I'll check in with you every now and then unless I see the hand go up. Thank you, ladies, very much for your submission. And it now gives me great pleasure to invite Vicki Pollock to the table. Vicki is speaking on behalf of the Carterton Indoor Pool and our submitter number 122.
Right. Morena. My name is Vicki Pollock. Thank you that I have this opportunity to speak today. Just as a way of introducing myself, I am a qualified registered remedial massage therapist. I have my own full-time clinic here in Carterton, and I've been doing this since 1996. I do musculoskeletal work and help people who have injuries, pain and alignment issues. I would like to speak to the council re the long-term plan under the community section, where it talks about vision and outcome, and within that specifically infrastructure that meets future needs. So I'm here to talk about infrastructure that meets future needs. I have been swimming at the Carterton indoor pool for a long time, and I'm inspired by what I see there. I feel like I witness little miracles and triumphs of the human body all the time. Some people just walk in the water, they don't swim, and with quiet determination, a lot of people, mostly older, make big beneficial changes to their lives. Some of them have had a stroke, live with diabetes, a heart condition, a head injury. Some have osteoporosis or depression or multiple sclerosis, back injury, a hip replacement, a knee replacement, and so on. A couple of years ago, I got to interview some of these people. I've swum for over 25 years, so I am already a convert, but I am fit and able. And it wasn't until I interviewed some regulars that I came to realise how important and how essential a pool is over other forms of exercise. A pool is non-weight bearing, so people can exercise without pain. They can do a whole range of movement for strength and balance that they simply could never do on land or at the gym. And the water is warm, way warmer than the Masterton pool. And it's indoors, so you can use it all year round, even if the weather is bad. Hopefully with the upgrade, we will get to add a ramp for greater access. So fundamentally, exercise in the pool is really important for pre-surgery strengthening and post-surgical recovery, management back from illness and accident, general strength and agility for prevention of falls, for general well-being and good mental health, and for fitness as a way of reducing serious illness. We have an aerobics class at the pool, and that can have up to 27 in one session. And this is the direct quote that I took from the aerobics instructor when I did the interviews. "I couldn't do this exercise on land or even at the gym. I see so many amazing recoveries at the Carterton pool, double hip replacement, knee replacements. Some of the girls even say that their doctor has commented about how well they have recovered post-operatively, and that's due to the exercise they do in the pool." I'm very aware that the council is on board already, and I thank you for that. My feeling is that it is important that we all work to keep the Carterton indoor pool open going forward, so we continue to meet the needs of a growing population in regards to fitness and rehabilitation. Closing a pool in this day and age would be short-sighted. We need options in the community that are close by for people to rehabilitate and exercise. And more than ever, our health service is increasingly vulnerable. We need options to stay healthy and fit and well. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Vicki. Very passionate to me. Hey, awesome. And with your around it. Committee members, are there any questions around the table online for Vicki? So go Steve Crackney and then Brian Dalla.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Vicki, I just had a question around the swimming club as to whether they've actually engaged with other Wairarapa swimming clubs to ascertain whether what condition their amenities might be in, whether it's far better off doing a collaborative approach and looking at this at Wairarapa, through a Wairarapa lens rather than just a Carterton Swimming Club lens.
I've got people here who are way more adept at that, answering that today. So that would be Catherine or Jason. Or Kelly, actually, who isn't actually able to speak, but she would be the best person to answer that question, and she'd answered it well. So
submissions are coming up, so we can hold that question, Steve. Brian.
Yeah, thanks, Vicki. Thanks for your passionate presentation. I note that in your presentation you spoke briefly about a ramp into the pool.
Yeah.
Now I think that is a great thing, and obviously it is in the plans to put a ramp in there.
Yes.
At this stage?
Yes, I think they're looking at how feasible that is. Yep. So there's ideas around having wheelchair access.
Yes.
But just watching some of the older people get in and out down the steps, if you've got mobility issues, something like a ramp would be really, really helpful. Yeah, it would be a lot better than what we have currently.
Maybe again, that question for either Jason or Catherine and during their submissions. If there's no other questions specifically to Vicki's submission. Thank you.
Can I ask one question, Robin?
Sorry, yep, I should see your hand.
Hello.
Sorry. Hi. Just in your personal opinion, how important is it to have a pool in Carterton versus the people needing to go to Masterton or wherever the next pool would be?
So you're asking why don't they go to Masterton?
I'm asking your opinion on why it's important that we have a pool in Carterton.
Yeah.
Why can't they just go up to Masterton?
Yeah, I knew you'd ask that, and I'm glad you have, because I do have a really good answer. So if you have chronic pain, I think your life is quite limited. And so the concept of being an older person and managing that highway up to Masterton at the moment is off-putting for people. And I do know that. I do have clients on my books who are intimidated with that journey up to Carterton, up to Masterton. So having it around the corner, it's cheaper, less petrol, but it's also that kind of, concept of going around the corner as opposed to having to being a long journey in a car. And the pole up there is colder. So we're interesting because we are doing the learn to swim. So we're already 2, 3, 4 degrees higher. So if you have people getting into the big pool and Masterton, the big main pool where they do the aerobics, it's not where they teach the kids to swim. So they're not invested in having it at that lovely ambient temperature. If you're doing aerobics, half of your body is out of the water for, half an hour. So you do get cold. It is an issue. If you can't actually swim, if you have to walk, then you're standing out of the water and you do get cold. So they do talk about, and Russell would vouch for this, that if it goes a degree under, people notice. And that is a real factor about our pool. It's an attractive factor that it is definitely warmer. Yes, and that's right. Yeah, that's a good point too. And you can stand as opposed to it being over your head, which is the case in Masterton.
Does that answer your question?
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much.
Awesome. Vicki, thank you.
No worries.
Very much indeed. Our next presenter, I believe.
No, I don't think that's come enough. I sent an email about 7 minutes ago, so I think we need to move on.
Okay, so.
In the room.
Enviro schools. Oh, sorry. Thank you. Enviro schools coming up. You don't look like Chris Montgomerie. But well,
She, her, pronouns at the end. Yeah.
But welcome. So you have 10 minutes in total. So if you allow some time for questions at the end, Robin will let you know when 7 minutes is up. And please speak to submission number 130.
I did send through some.
Yeah, no, I'm voting them now.
Brilliant. Okay. Kia ora koutou, ko Chris Montgomerie toko ingoa. I'm the team leader for Enviro Schools Te Upoko o Te Ika a Maui, and I have with me today Jill Stewart, who's the Enviro Schools Community Facilitator for Wairarapa. Thanks for having us here today and taking the time to read our submission and us to come along and talk. I'd like to start off by acknowledging Jill. We've been really fortunate to have Jill working in the Enviro Schools team for many years in Wairarapa, and as a result, there's been some really strong and enduring connections made between schools and mana whenua, other environmental education providers and communities, community groups and community spaces. And the last 3 years, we've had an MOU with the 3 Wairarapa councils, and this has meant that we've been able to take a whole lot more coordinated approach to the delivery of the Enviro Schools program across the area. If we look at these slides, it's you can see how there's quite a lot of engagement from schools and early childhood centres across the Wairarapa, and some schools that have been involved for quite a long time have been able to deepen their sustainability practice and become sort of mentors and share their practice around the network. So we'll just wanted to use this opportunity as a way of sharing the program with councillors and by showing the value of the work that we do, seek your endorsement to for the ongoing Enviro Schools program across Wairarapa. We're currently working through a process of renewing the MOU with council officers at the moment. So just very briefly on the next slide, a key aspect of
Enviro Schools is providing guidance for kaiako and akonga to learn in, about and take action for the environment. And today more than ever, the kaupapa of having empowered students and sustainable communities is really crucial. So Enviro Schools delivers on all of these through student learning in action. So that's engaging the akonga, the teacher networking, which is working with kaiako, and then taking quite a whole school holistic approach. The next few slides will just go through some examples which were in the submission, but I'll just pull out a few key points about these three areas. So working with akonga, that's around learning and taking action together in the environment. This example here is from an ecological building workshop that Jill ran earlier this year. That was held at Wairarapa Earth School at Southend, and gave children a really great hands-on opportunity to not just develop the understand the principles of these ecological building materials, but also observe nature and see how nature builds things, and then see if they can replicate it. And so there's a whole lot of thinking and understanding and more learning that can be taken back to the classroom. One of the photos that we had in the submission showed a Zoom call, but actually what we try and do in most of the engagement with the akonga is to get them out and into the environment, outside into nature. And the Earth School's a favourite place because you can really see sustainability in practice. But often you don't have to go too far. You can go into a corner of the school grounds to actually get that nature experience as well. It's also, when we're working with akonga, it's often a good opportunity to bring other experts in so they can learn from other adults and see that there are careers or job opportunities working in the space that can really excite young people. The next slide, we also work with kaiako, so that's gathering teachers together to learn together, and that's that opportunity to share, have those side conversations and share what's working or not in schools and centres. And at the moment, Jill's working quite intensively with a group of kindy and early childhood teachers across Wairarapa, so across the three different councils, exploring the kaupapa of Enviro Schools, but also working and reporting back and sort of thinking deeply around how they're being applied in their centres. And then the next one is the beauty of taking a whole school approach. So this example that we put in the submission is from Douglas Park School in Masterton, but I think it's still really useful to, again, demonstrate how the MOU across the three councils has worked really well with Wairarapa and Enviro Schools, because someone like Douglas Park that's been doing this for 20 odd years has got a lot of wisdom and knowledge and learning the hard way as well that they can share with other. And so it's a really great sort of exemplar that we can share across other people that we're working with. We went to a reflection they did at the end of last year, and they took us, the photo on the left-hand side is a previously out of bounds a creek on the corner of their property, which has been daylighted, replanted around, and the school, the children really love going to visit the tuna that are there now too. So that's really deep engagement within the school boundaries. So in terms of links to the Carterton District Council's long-term plan, I think all of these examples show how creating strong connections for young people and their whānau with community groups and local spaces is all about building up that community resilience. You can see there that we've highlighted a few of the key words that resonate with the Enviro Schools kaupapa and your long-term plan, and some of the key parts from your community vision. In terms of what we're working on with, as I said, with council officers, we are looking at just on the next slide, we're talking about the benefits of the 3-year Wairarapa wide MOU. That's been really great in the last 3 years. As I said, it's enabled us to sort of pool resources, but also have Jill work with the three schools from across the 3 areas, and so teachers can choose to go to things that are most interesting to them, and we can gather schools from different areas to work together. It's meant that we've been able to leverage those connections. great for continuity of relationships and also providing that level of security for everybody who's involved. So we are really keen to progress that again. One of the things that we're also talking to council officers about is the opportunity to deliver waste education, and that's on the next slide. So there's, as part of the Wellington Region Waste Management and Minimisation Plan, there is an aspect of zero waste education that is in there. And as I said, we've got people like Jill and the communities working with schools and already being that centre point for schools and community groups. So having an Enviro Schools facilitator being able to deliver those zero waste sort of modules as part of this plan would also enable not only to sort of put it on the agenda for schools more easily, but also help schools to, once they've done those modules and sort of tick the box in terms of the waste management and minimisation plan, can then help the same person delivering the two would then help them see how they can go to be a bit more holistic environmental education from there. Again, building on resilience and another deeper level. Yeah. So that's it from us. Thank you for listening, and I'm very happy to have answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Robin, can you make sure the presentation is circulated to all the committee members, please? Thank you. Committee, questions? Kia ora.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Chris, I was just curious, has the Enviro Schools accessed the new fund that Carterton District Council has in the waste space?
Yes, very aware of it. Have spoken with Sky about it, and I've also let the schools know in the Carterton area that it's available. I don't think it's something for us to tap into because we're funded, but we're trying to get it out that there are funds to support them to implement their actions within schools.
Okay, thank you.
Questions from?
Just because I don't have a terribly good grasp of what you're doing, how many people are you actually employing in Wairarapa?
I am linked in with other environmental educators. Like we've strengthened quite a core group, so I don't feel like I'm alone anymore. So all my workshops I deliver with Pukaha or the Earth School, Garden to Table. So we are very linked and get strength from that. Yeah. I'm also seated at the Regional Council, so I'm often working with those people as well. Like there's a project coming up around the Moana and I bring them in as experts. So yeah, it's just me, but the strength and collaboration is really cool.
Thank you both so much for your submission, and it's great reading, and keep up the mahi. Yes, thank you. Our next submitter, Jason, welcome to the table. And Kelly, are you joining him? Welcome, good to see you.
Kia ora tātou.
Over to you.
Thank you. I send apologies, bring apologies from Anna Beetham, our chair of the working group. She's a busy person. My role in the project working group is on building and project management. Kelly is also on the project working group to do with the fundraising and representing the swim club. Hearing from Catherine Rossiter-Stead shortly, so that's four of us. Michael Hewison, I think you're hearing from later today. I don't know if he's talking about the pool, but he's also directly involved with what we're doing. We've had some lead-in discussions. I just wanted to point out that the two meetings we've had, both of them with Councillor Newman and Deputy Mayor, have been about what we are asking for. And on the second meeting, we had the Chief Executive and we had Glenda as well. So you'll see we haven't asked for money, but we did in our earlier draft. And we were persuaded not to ask for money. And I'm feeling a bit silly now because I've read everyone else's submissions. I understand the reasons, but I don't agree with those reasons. But anyway, so that's how you see no money mentioned in our submission. And also to tie up some admin that's ongoing, the ground lease We have agreed that it should be signed, and yes, we admit we dragged our feet a bit, but there's still some detail that isn't quite right in the latest draft, so we're getting there. I wanted to also point out that I didn't realise Nuku Ora made a submission. If I was aware they were going to submit, we would have asked them to talk about the swimming pool. Obviously, physical activity would have been a complementary thing, but maybe you could ask Andrew Leslie about the swimming pool when he comes on this afternoon. Okay. Really, the question I have for you is what should be the relationship with the indoor pool in the future? So to get to that, there's three things I want to raise. What the pool represents, why it's a worthy investment, and what should happen next. Well, obviously it represents resilience. It was built 60 years ahead of its time because it's 40 years old. In 20 years' time, the council may consider building something similar. So we've had that benefit already for 40 years. It's not something the council could have afforded to do. It did take 4 years to build. It's been operating through many challenges. There are many anecdotes you might have heard about, such as the wood-fired boiler that was originally the way it was heated, and the first person there in the morning would fire it up. So amazing how resilient it's been. And it's nothing fancy. And it's epitomised, of course, by Russell Gange and recognised by his QSM recently, how it embodies, it epitomises what we can do as a community for our own people. My second point is why it's a worthy investment. I guess it's really about we will lose it. If we do not replace the building, it'll be gone. It's a well-studied problem. Over the last 6 years, there have been 4 main reports, including in 2018, when the council got involved as a joint review. 2019, a facilities condition report, 2020, the feasibility study, 2022, the business case. It is a big project, but it's still worth the investment. There'll be challenges. We've had excellent discussions with the chief executive about how council can help us overcome those challenges. So I don't think that puts at risk any investment that we might make. And I also think that you should consider that we are probably the best people to do this rather than council, because I believe we'll do it cheaper, we'll do it better, and it will last longer. We only have to look at council's challenges with its own projects and just consider that the effort that we're putting in is not just sincere, but we are protecting our own interests. But also we're making sure as we go that it's designed to be a long-term and enduring facility. And there is a perception, and I understand, that the facility as it is there were shortcuts taken, there was no ventilation, and so hence its current condition. There is no way in which we intend to cut corners. We're engaging directly with council, the regulatory, with John Tate. So I don't think you should have any reservations about how important that or how appropriate the investment will be. So my last point, what next? So our earlier draft did mention that a dug-in ramp would cost about $100,000. Is a ballpark estimate from the consultant we're about to hire. And that consultant, if $100,000 is the top end of what we're asking for, then $12,500 is the offer of service for concept design. So maybe that gives you a range of amounts that you could consider. I have heard others talk about MOU agreements with council. We would like a partnership, for want of a better term, to reflect that it's a community asset, that other councils, bigger councils, do this as a matter of their business. They have an indoor pool. That's why we're asking for it to be included in the long-term plan, to recognise that it's a shared resource. And I just want to mention what happens next is that we do want to set up a charitable trust. Currently, the club owns the asset. The working group are doing the project, but it is our aim to have a trust that you could consider to be an appropriate partner in that relationship. So, yeah, that's the end of it.
Lovely. Thank you very, very much. Now, I had some questions from the two gentlemen from my right earlier
Yes.
that they had asked Vicki, but she thought maybe you're better suited to answer. So, Councillor Crackney, to you first.
Jason, my question was just around if the swimming club is engaged with other Wairarapa swimming clubs, as to ascertain what state their existing amenities are in and whether there's a better off going with a Wairarapa collaborative approach to what you're proposing.
So the swimming club is very much a minority of users of the pool. We have about 20 members. So we've looked into it recently and we have about 400 under 12 swimmers, which aren't part of the club. And then we have all of the members that Vicki discussed of key holders and aqua joggers, and then there's Russell Gange swim squad that aren't necessarily members. So for the swimming club to reach out to other swimming clubs is we're the only indoor pool in South Wairarapa. It would be if 20 of our swimming club members join Masterton Swimming Club, it's not going to help the 400 learn to swim or Carterton schools that come and use the pool, or the elderly that use it. So as Jason said, the swimming club would like to pass over the ownership of the building to a trust, a community trust. That of course we'll try and build the swimming club numbers once we have a new building, but it's a pointless exercise at this point in time because it's just not
horrible.
Yes.
8 minutes.
Could I just add in there, Swimming New Zealand confirmed that this is the last club in New Zealand to own and operate its own pool.
Hence wanting to set up the charitable trust or community charitable trust. Okay.
And we currently only have about 2 members on the committee at the moment, myself being one of them. So,
Brian, did you?
Thank you for your presentation, Jason. I think my questions have been answered. Really good to see that you've got some costings on a dug-in ramp, and I think that is really important for this construction, this project. Thank you.
Thank you both very much. There being no other questions.
Do we have time for any?
Just one quick question. I'm just conscious of time.
Just which proposal is the project working group's preferred option? You had two proposals. Do you have a preferred option?
Yeah. The dug-in ramp, although it might be easier to get a grant because it adds accessibility to the facility. So we'd worry less about getting alternative funding for that. And we don't currently have a grant to cover the design fees, so that would come out of the generous donations from the Big Swim. People who, gave $20. So I'll leave that to you.
Thank you very, very much, both of you, for your time this evening. Much appreciated. Our next submitter, following on from the theme, Catherine.
Morena, ko Catherine Rossiter-Stead, toko ingoa. I'm obviously from the Carterton Indoor Pool project team. So I'm going to present a little bit of a different perspective, hopefully, pool, and follow on from Vicki Pollock's good submission around rehabilitation. So the Carterton Indoor Pool is more than a building. Carterton Swimming Club is one of the oldest swimming clubs in New Zealand and is the last swimming club in the country to own its own pool. Please. I aha te mea nui a te ao, he tangata, no, he tangata, he tangata. It's the community. It's about the people. It is the people. It is the people. To the next slide, please. With the cost of living placing limitations on what people spend their money on, the increasing cost of taking our youngsters all the way to Masterton with swimming lessons is real. Without an all year round, all weather pool in the southern Wairarapa, Tamariki and Rangatahi from across our region will miss out on learning to swim and building confidence in the water, creating aspirations, pushing themselves to discover their limits, helping them to be part of a team, teaching them to compete graciously against their peers, to growing their resilience, developing a lifelong love of being active. Over the years, the pool has produced swimmers who have won national titles, broken national records, including Ava Wilson, who's there with Russell, who last year represented New Zealand and gained bronze in the New South Wales Junior Open Water Champs, and Olympian Jonathan Winter, who swam in the Atlanta Games. Recently, the club's coach, pool manager, and one of the original volunteers who built the pool, Russell Gange, was awarded a QSM for 50 years service to the Wairarapa swimming community. As you can see there, we've got Rosie Rogers swim school, we've got local primary schools, and we've got people like Scarlett here, who's won medals recently at the Ames Games in Tauranga, and obviously Ava, who has actually had to move up to Auckland to continue her career to represent New Zealand. And it's a great story in the fact that she started here in the Carterton pool. The next slide, please, Robin. Thank you. Kuranui students Alex and Abby here on the left get up early twice a week to swim to help improve their overall fitness. They were a bit embarrassed about that photo, but I insisted that they be shown so you can understand who we are and who we are as a community. They want to perform to their best of their ability in their chosen sports. Abby is a hockey goalie. She's not a competitive swimmer. She goes swimming just to stay fit. So during the COVID lockdown, Scott in the middle there was determined to improve his fitness and challenged himself to complete an Ironman. He is now a professional triathlete and is coached as an adult member of Russell's swim squad. And that's me on the right. I started swimming 12 years ago and now compete as an open water swimmer and triathlete. And I hope to qualify for the ITU World Championships in aquabike and represent New Zealand next summer. Next slide, please. Thank you. Importantly, the Carterton Indoor Pool offers so much more than just swimming. It also provides our community with an opportunity to have dignity in old age, to be resilient and capable and connected to others. Chrissy here on the left is unable to walk without the aid of a walking stick. Twice a week, she comes to the pool with her sister Sue and friend Nikki to keep fit by walking in the pool. Maureen there regularly swims in the pool with her friend Nita. They are both grandmothers, and you will often see Maureen teaching her grandchildren to swim. Apologies, Vicki, for the fun. There's our beautiful mermaids. You can see Kath on the left there couldn't swim a year ago. She learnt to swim in the pool and recently completed nearly 20K during the month of March as part of the big swim. And you'll see Vicki there, and I'm sure she hopes she doesn't mind me saying, she's swum for many years most mornings, and her swim fitness has improved so much. She is now able to run half marathon distances on a regular basis.
A marathon.
Marathon, correction. Glad you're in the room. Dave here sadly passed away after developing colon cancer, but he walked in the pool every morning and he wanted us to share this with you. I like the pool because I'm not hampered by bad weather. It's a great exercise that you can do throughout the whole winter when it's hard otherwise to get outside. And because the pool is the same depth the whole way along, people can walk in the pool like Chrissy, like Dave, and there are other people I can mention as well who come along to the pool in the morning and do that. Next slide, please, Robin. Thank you. Your vision is to be a welcoming and vibrant community where we all enjoy living. And you've got two strategic focuses well, you've got 4 important social outcomes, but there are 2 strategic focuses I'd like you to remember. You're saying that as a community, as a council, you want a caring community that is safe, healthy, happy and connected. You're also saying that you want fit for purpose public facilities, spaces, parks and rural reserves. Research has identified that swimming is one of the best types of physical activity for people of all ages. This was reinforced recently by Swimming New Zealand, who launched its Unlock Your Greatness campaign aimed at promoting and improving the health and well-being of New Zealanders. Our users range from toddlers to nonagenarians, that's a difficult word for me, and our pool community provides people with an unparalleled opportunity for intergenerational well-being. The council support doesn't necessarily mean it has to spend ratepayers' dollars. And I noticed there are a lot of people on this list that are coming to you to say, could we have money? We're not asking for that. And despite your comment earlier, Jason, we're not asking for that. There are other ways you can support the Carterton Indoor Pool project. To have the support stated explicitly in the long-term plan would demonstrate a commitment to supporting an important piece of infrastructure. There are currently over 3,000 users, with 400 of those, as you heard earlier, that are under 12, plus the kids who use it from the local primary schools. The Carterton population is growing by 6%, its older generation by 30%. It's an absolute no-brainer that this important asset should feature in your long-term plan so that future generations have an asset that they can use for their well-being. And that's my presentation.
Thank you, Catherine. I have one question before I hand over to others. Having CDC's stated support in the LTP, not for financial dollars, but our actual support, how will that help you with getting other funding through other sources? Will that be a real benefit to you?
Absolute benefit. It states that you believe that this is an important piece of infrastructure that needs to be, well, upgraded so that more of the community can use it. Like, for example, the ramp, like, for example, having, showers maybe for girls and boys, because we've got people, one of the reasons people like coming to Carterton, it was Lou, to your point earlier, is actually it's the community. They feel safe when they come into that environment. It's not like going to the Masterton pools where you've got, no offence, but you've got some very large men sitting outside the sauna with tattoos all over them. They feel that they can't leave their belongings in the lockers. Whereas at Carterton, we all know each other. It's a small enough community that we keep an eye on each other and check in on each other as well. It is a community and it mustn't be forgotten about that. It's not just a pool with water in it. It's a community.
Thank you. That answered my question beautifully. Any other questions? Councillor Cretney.
Catherine, just thinking about what Robin's just said, do you not see that a long-term lease, council agreeing to a long-term lease with the swimming club provides that and confirms that support?
I would like to see you state to your community that you believe that this community asset is really important to this community. And a lease is one thing, but it's hidden away in the back office. But by stating it in your long-term plan, you are demonstrating that you are committed to supporting this community asset for however long it is. I think it's 10 years, isn't it, a long-term plan? Yeah, that's what I would like to see. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Looking to Lou? No. Other members?
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your passion.
No worries.
Really appreciate it. Next up, we're only 10 minutes behind. We're doing well. Barbara Durbin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I too am more used to submitting from a standing position. Thank you, Madam Chair, Your Worship, councillors. I did put in an earlier submission, so this is not quite a regurgitation, but shall we say a slightly different slant on what I said previously. I chose to retire to Carterton about just over 20 years ago. I was born here a million years ago. I came back. In a past life, my role was primarily one of governance, both elected and appointed positions. I served as an elected member on city, regional and district local authorities and in various appointed government positions, including as a local government commissioner for 8 years or so. I was likewise heavily involved in leading various major not-for-profits, and in these capacities I was involved in the financing, development and ongoing governance of many major community assets. So I've been round the traps a few times, but that phase has now largely passed. I now live contentedly under my stone in Carterton, and when it rains are more often seen than not, encouraging the stormwater drains outside my house to behave as they were designed. I judge a community by how well it provides for its children, its elderly and its infirm. In Carterton, we look after our children. Our schools and preschools are well supported. The outdoorsy youngsters have sports fields, parks and a swimming pool with free access in which to play. The more bookish youngsters have free access to an excellent library, an artistic and culturally alive community centre, and with quiet places that they can just go and enjoy themselves. Those of us of the more semi-ancient variety are likewise well catered for. Community activities and interest groups abound. We have an excellent library, a vibrant and busy event centre, reasonable roads and footpaths, a safe water supply, and a wastewater system which is hard to get excited about, but is the envy of our neighbours. We have an active fire brigade, ambulance service, and a nearby hospital care for us if life gets sticky. And when the time comes, we have Carter Court, a community-owned elder care facility to withdraw to. And should we wish to escape, I can't think why we would, we can always hop on the buses or disappear by train. So thanks to this council and previous councils and the community over many years, we are well served to meet our current needs. We could usefully remind ourselves at this time that we are indeed a wealthy community in the truest sense of the word, albeit we may have little spare change this year. Many are worried about the current economic turmoil. We're somewhat cash-strapped and doing it tough right now. High interest rates continue to bite, inflation remains high, unemployment is rising, business confidence is low, and the cost of living pressures remain a significant challenge for many households. You'll have seen that, particularly Mr. Ayling's comment this morning. This is not a good time for council to fund major new projects, however exciting they might be. This is a time to make sure the roof doesn't leak, we can pay our bills and feed our families. Please demonstrate the leadership we expect of you. Constrain the expenses and reduce the proposed rates to a manageable level. And I don't envy you that task, having been round these particular traps a few times. I assume councillors have read my initial submission and have on how general rates, largely directed to roading and transport, might be more fairly applied through a variable funding regime across the council's existing roading classification. I've since done some further research, and whilst my networks across the local government sector may have wilted somewhat over the years, there is always, but always, an example of another solution out there. When I was a commissioner, Wairarapa District and Banks Peninsula were seen as the two little orphans in the local government scene. Banks Peninsula solved their problem by amalgamating through boundary change with Christchurch City. That solved their issue. Wairarapa seems to have got itself in a very good position through its own hard work, development and making very wise decisions. And I never thought I would use Wairarapa Council as an example of good governance, but here we are. And Wairarapa District Council has determined that the differential applied to each rateable unit shall reflect the use to which the land is put. That's Schedule 2 of the Local Government Rating Act, Clause 1. Rather than the catch-all and chunky zoning-based rates system that provided for in the Local Government Rating Act, Schedule 2, Clause 2, which is used in Carterton and reads, the activities that are permitted, controlled or discretionary for the area in which the land is situated and the rules to which the land is subject under an operative district plan or regional plan under the Resource Management Act. It's messy, with due respect to our resource manager. But the result of council having made that decision is that the current urban residential ratepayers are paying 25% more on the dollar plus GST and after tax than those classified as rural residential under their current rating system for transport and roading costs. That is inequitable, unsustainable and without merit and needs to be addressed. And by going back to Clause 1 under the Act, this could be resolved, and as indeed it has been done in Wairarapa. It would be a relatively simple computer-based exercise to do, as Wairarapa Council have done, and identify the land to which the use is put across the district. Let's face it, it's not difficult. All this part is residential, basically, apart from a bit of commercial and a bit of industrial. You go right up to the coast, you find genuine rural people. In the closer rural areas, you find both residential and genuine rural. Rural residential lots would be properly recognised as being residential when setting the general rate. In other words, our urban residential or residential with separately charged benefits would be, for the purpose of setting the general rate portion of the rate, be the same as that for the general rate portion of the rural residential rates, which are residential but without separately charged benefits. You can talk about friends with benefits if you like, and it's the next stage on that. We're all residential. Some get extra things that they pay for, some don't. It's as simple as that. In this scenario, Wairarapa District Council also has three different categories of residential land. From memory, it's rateable value of under 700,000, they have a differential of 0.8. Rateable value of 700 to, I think it's 1.2 million, a differential of 1, and over 1.2, a differential of 0.8. This recognises affordability as a factor in that scale. So the ones towards the bottom, the lower end, get a little bit of help by being 0.8. The ones at the upper end, they recognise we don't want to thrash them, and they get a bit of recognition by being a slightly lower rate. As in Carterton, land in the Wairarapa district, which has an acknowledged rural use, has a differential for the general rate of 0.8, and differentials for commercial, industrial and forestry are also set. A similar approach in Carterton would not only remove the anomaly of urban residential ratepayers being rated an extra 25% for transport and roading, but the rating base could easily and automatically be updated as future developments and changes in land use occur across the district as the proposed district plan evolves and is implemented. Having heard that Wairarapa and Carterton were different as far as the setting of differential rates of forestry operations, which I raised in my initial submission, which the courts have found Wairarapa quite correct in being able to set that rate. I think this probably relates to the fact that they're looking at land that is zoned forestry with a specific differential rather than being lost in land that just has a zone of rural. And that is quite an easy one to fix. And if we did that, we could quite properly rate the rural land for the effect it has on the economy of the community. Not a hard one, but it's a process, I think. And if we did that process, or if council did that process, I think we would actually just go right through the court system as Wairarapa has.
Barbara, your 10 minutes is
I respectfully request that when next reviewing council's finance and rating policy, and I don't think you necessarily have to wait 3 years. I think you have to do it every 3 years, but I'm sure you can do an interim if you so wished. That council consider the use to which the land is put under section 1 of the first schedule, rather than section 2 when determining various rating differentials across the district. It's just a bit more sophisticated, it's a bit more specific, and quite frankly, it is a fairer way of doing it, because I don't really see why someone who lives perhaps on one side of Connolly's line or Lincoln Road, if that's where the line still is, should pay 25% more in the dollar.
Barbara,
plus GST.
We need to wrap up because we have a full day of submitted and we're behind time.
Plus GST and in after-tax costs than the person on the other side of the road. So that's my submission. Thank you for the opportunity to address you in the manner in which I've been received. And I wish you well in your deliberations. Never easy.
Barbara, thank you very much for your time. Unfortunately, we don't have time for questions, but I'm sure Barbara would be more than happy to take any via email or in person at any stage.
You know where I hide.
Absolutely. What was it? Which stone you're under? Thank you, Barbara, and for your experience too. It's really appreciated. Next to the table, Rosie Rogers, submitter number 134. Rosie, welcomes. You've got questions, then Robin will let you know in seconds. Welcome.
Thank you. Do I wait?
Go for it. Yeah, all yours.
Good morning, councillors, and thank you for having me today. So I'm Rosie Rogers and I live just up the road in Gladstone, and I'm also the owner of the White Swan Hotel in Grayson and the Tui Brewery Experience in Mangatanoka. So today, I'll be honest, it's a little bit outside my comfort zone coming into this environment, but it's something I feel really strongly about. So I'm here. I'm here on behalf of a number of Wairarapa businesses. You would have seen our open letter, which I emailed to each of you. So I'm here on behalf of Transit Group, Star Safari, Pukaha, Mount Bruce, Palliser Ridge, Big Sky Wines, Edinburgh Hotel, Great on Honey, and obviously the White Swan Hotel. We've also got Hari online from Star Safari, who you will hear from. So I've just returned from Trends. Hari was there as well as Destination Wairarapa, and we had an incredible time, which has prompted me to make sure that I was here to speak to you about, firstly, thanking you for the support that you give to Destination Wairarapa, and secondly, to outline why it's important that that support continues. So Trends is the biggest event on the New Zealand tourism calendar. And like I said, I was there, Destination Wairarapa were there promoting our region to buyers from all over the world. This is just one of the things that Destination Wairarapa does to support business in the region. And after Trends, they brought 20 odd buyers from all over the world into the Wairarapa, and they absolutely blew them away with what we have here, this hidden gem of a region, which is just on the cusp of being discovered by the international markets. These 20 buyers spent time in Martinborough, Carterton at Star Safari, and then made their way on up through Pukaha, Tui Brewery, and onto Hawke's Bay, which is a really critical tourism link for our region. Over the past year, visitor spend in Carterton has increased by 9.2% to $10.7 million. Now, some of that is obviously due to Carterton events such as Daffodil Festival and events here at the Carterton Event Centre, but the majority, it's indirect spend. It's from tourists exploring the wider region and spending their money here in Carterton. Not just the obvious tourism destinations like Star Safari and the Event Centre and hotels and motels. This money is being spent in our supermarkets, our dairies, gas stations, pharmacies, op shops, antique stores, cafes and restaurants. I like to think of this money like foreign currency. It's money from outside of our region, from domestic and international travellers being spent here in our region. It's bringing new money in for all of us to benefit from. So without that boost from visitors, many of our local businesses would struggle. They wouldn't have the money being spent. And so off the back of that, we risk having fewer shops, fewer gas stations and dairies in our town. So where does Destination Wairarapa fit in? Destination Wairarapa is the glue which holds our region's tourism industry together. It's no coincidence that just about every time you pick up a lifestyle magazine or jump on an Air New Zealand flight, you see a glowing article about the Wairarapa. That is the hidden work of Destination Wairarapa. It is their networks with media. It is their absolute expert industry knowledge that is working behind the scenes, largely unseen, to bring people into our region. One example that we are on the cusp of being able to really capitalise on is Star Safari. There are others like agritourism and the Five Towns Trail Trust. There is huge opportunity for Carterton. Destination Wairarapa would play a vital role in helping the region realise the economic benefits of the Dark Sky Reserve through promoting it through their domestic and international networks in the tourism sector. And Hari from Star Safaris is going to speak now to this point, and then I will wrap up.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning, Hari.
We can hear you, but we can't see you.
Oh, I can see myself, but I will just speak so we don't waste any time. Thank you very much for this opportunity to talk. We started Star Safari part-time in 2019. It's a stargazing business. We transitioned to working there full-time about 2.5 years ago when we also moved to our current location on Ponatahi Road. Destination Wairarapa not only supported us finding a proper site, but helped us all the way in building a business that is based on tourism and science communication. So we do the science communication bit, but if we don't have people to talk to, it doesn't matter how much you want to talk about science. So this is how they supported us to grow. They facilitated visits from tourism people that come here to New Zealand, and they helped us to get to know them. They literally brought a lot of people to Star Safari. They helped us getting Qualmark. This is brilliant. We're Qualmark Silver. It is an extraordinary achievement. This happened with their support. They supported us and they encouraged us to come to Trends and make contact with the biggest tourism community there is out here in New Zealand. So we were there because they insisted that we should go there. They're helping us with promotion. And I think the last thing is that they're helping us by linking everything that we do with other businesses. So almost every week we have Barb or Anna or Chrissy emailing us with someone else that they think we should connect with and when we should do things together. So these are extraordinary things, extraordinary acts of support from Destination Wairarapa. And I just wanted to say thank you for their extraordinary work, and it definitely helped us grow.
Thank you. So as Hari's just indicated, there is huge opportunity here, which would obviously be lost without the unseen work of Destination Wairarapa. So once again, thank you for your support. And I hope that we can see ongoing contribution to Destination Wairarapa, because tourism is New Zealand's second largest industry, and regional tourism in New Zealand is reliant on partnerships with local government. The 3-year funding model provides the certainty and continuity which is essential to be able to plan effectively. So as a Carterton resident, I'm asking you to continue your support, which is so vital for this district and the region as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosie. Questions?
Thank you, Rosie. Look, you and Nick and others that were in the presentation are embedded. You are part of our tourism sector in Wairarapa. I have frequently heard comments from people saying, there's no value. I don't see any value in Destination Wairarapa. What do they do? How do you measure them? You're the receiver of that service. Tell me what your answers to those comments would be.
Well, for me, the measurement is there. It's the 9.2% growth to Carterton, and that's $10.7 million. And I think without Destination Wairarapa, like I said, they are the glue that hold us as an industry together. And without that continuity and as a united industry, we really lack the ability to go to market and bring tourists in. It's a marketing organisation. and measuring that is extremely difficult. But for example, we had the Australian Today Show broadcasting from the South Wairarapa to the whole, a massive Australian audience. That was nearly $900,000 worth of value just from one engagement, one relationship that they hold. There's no way I could take the time out of my business or have the expertise or power to be able to bring that kind of value in. There's millions of dollars worth of advertising value being established from the work that Destination Wairarapa do. And I keep saying it just goes unseen because, as you point to, Ron, people don't understand the work that's being done. And it's a very hard thing to measure. So as a business owner, for me, it's obvious, but it's hard to measure.
Thank you, Rosie. Steve Gallen.
Rosie, you mentioned 20 buyers. So how far afield are they coming from?
All over. We had Australia is our biggest market here in New Zealand, and the US is the second. So buyers from both of those places. Then Swiss, German, European. It's pretty broad, and Asian markets. And the Indian market is a huge market that's growing in New Zealand. So there was 2 Indian buyers in that group. So it's a global audience, and each one of those buyers represents a enormous network of businesses offshore. So that one buyer will go home and present on our product to, a completely untapped, huge economy.
Were they a bit like travel agent people?
Yeah, so it's the equivalent of, a wholesale travel agent. So they'll go back and sell their product to other travel agents offshore.
One more question. I know that we're over time and I'm getting the time signal, but a real quick question.
Rosie, apologies for listening.
That's why I wasn't sure if I should wait.
Do you feel Destination Wairarapa provides adequate support of businesses outside of their membership when it's supported by council funding?
Well, I'm not one of them, so it's hard for me to answer that question. But I think at the end of the day, there is always going to be businesses that are going to benefit from Destination Wairarapa's work. And like I said, it's the petrol stations and the dairies and the supermarkets who we can't expect everybody to be a member paying to Destination Wairarapa, because literally that would be everybody. The work that they do benefits the entire region. And so I think, yes, the work that they're doing with the small budget that they have and the small amount of resource that they have is incredible. And so yes, I think it is supporting businesses outside of their membership base, but I don't think you could expect everybody to be members. So we do rely on that council local government relationship.
Thank you. Does that answer your question? Rosie, thanks so much for your time, and Harry as well. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great to see you at the table and for your submission. Thank you.
I've got to run to South Wairarapa now.
Yep. Our next submitter is Chris Peterson. He's actually submitted number 87, not number 81. Chris, you have 10 minutes total. So 7 minutes and then allow time for questions.
Kia ora koutou. First thing I want to do before I forget is to congratulate the council on the just the great presentation they had to their community through that supplement in the local papers. Very few words, very good diagrams, and just congratulations to. I just haven't seen it better. So now I'm here today because first I'm a resident of of Carterton, and probably like many of us, I see myself as actually living in the Wairarapa rather than living in any particular town. We should be speaking as one a lot more. So yeah, but in the second place, I'm also here to because I put my hand up and said I'd represent Sustainable Wairarapa and Forest and Bird in supporting Monique's application submission this afternoon. And I think she's talking this afternoon. It's about her passion and aspirational view of what you people might be able to do with the property up at Kaipatangata. 350 hectares. It's a big block. Currently in pines, I understand, and I think her plea is that you will maybe not look at. And I know we're here for a long-term plan, but a long-term plan, 3 years or
3 years on a rolling cycle and 10 years in total is really not a very long-term plan. If you use other measures, other rulers, and I think we need to be looking at longer-term vision still. Both back into the past to see what we've missed and into the future. People talk about the extinction of experience, and we don't realise, just what we had here in the Wairarapa and what's gone, and because we don't know we had it, we never pined for it. But I think at the moment we're in a transition where we are starting to look at the world in a much wider context, both in time and space, and I think a lot of that comes from our this iwi Renaissance and Maori Renaissance with their worldview, which is quite different from the one that I was brought up in, where we were essentially not part of this world. It was a time of preparation for the next. Risen angels, not fallen angels, not risen apes. And I think this. So I think we need to learn from that, and that Maori Tohono document that Greater Wellington and and a number of iwi in the region put out recently should, I think, be something we pay a lot of attention to. But just back to Monique's vision, I guess look, I know councils, at the moment with the world and all of us have this cost of living crisis and worried about the here and now, and understandably so. But we do need to just also think in terms of what we're leaving for our children and for the next generation, and what sort of environment we're leaving for not just ourselves, but for those other, well, for the peka, for the bats that Monique's particularly impassioned by. So these little things that sit in the palm of your hand, that have been in this country for 20 or 30 million years, just on the verge of being finished, because we just don't give them enough attention. And what I'd hope, and it won't cost councils a lot of money, is that sometime over the term of the next 3 years, they might give some, and hopefully in collaboration with the other councils, to some sort of biodiversity strategy or vision, which they can share with their community, and because it's only when the community have it in their hearts that it will give you the social license to carry it forward from here. So that's a verbal, I know, and if I have any criticism or sadness with your plan, I guess, is that I'd see you entitled resilience and you do pay. There is a strong focus on infrastructure, and we know that local councils throughout New Zealand have a huge infrastructure deficit, which has to be addressed. But you won't be surprised if I mention it. But I think that climate and biodiversity and all these other huge uncertainties about the future are bigger questions, resilience questions than perhaps you have asked. I just want to finish.
At that time completely.
Yeah, I just want to finish with this quote from Richard Flanagan, an Australian author, and he's actually speaking more or less now. I think he's the keynote speaker, one of them at the Auckland Writers and Readers Festival, and he says, the world is burning up, and more or less everyone knows, and more or less nobody does anything about it.
Thank you, Chris. We are out of time from that submission. Appreciate you taking the time for your submission and also in support of a submission that we will be hearing later this afternoon. Thank you. Our next submitter is Grace Ayling, submitter number 106. Grace, total of 10 minutes. So if you'd like to speak to 7 and leave time for questions if you'd like questions.
Will there be a note at 7 minutes or?
Yes, there will be.
Good afternoon, councillors. It's nice to be back in the room. For those of you here who don't know me, my name is Grace Ayling. I am an elected councillor here at CDC, but today I speak as a concerned ratepayer. As councillors, we each come to this table with our own set of core beliefs, with values that help guide us in our deliberations and our discussions. It is for these core beliefs, not in spite of them, that residents vote us in. I was elected to cut costs. I do not have a conflict of interest. I have a mandate. It has been said that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. So we should spend twice the amount of time listening as we do speaking. To me, that sums up our role as councillors. We are to first and foremost listen to those who we are here to represent. Are you really listening? There are many ways we listen. Some formally, others more organically. Today is the former. With the consultation period over and submissions and deliberations to discuss, Council has nearly concluded one aspect of our listening. However, it is not the only way that councils listen. Some might feel that the submission period is what really counts, that it is only those who take the time to write in officially that you should consider in these deliberations. However, I did not stand for council to be the voice for those who already have one, for those who already use it. I stood for council to be the voice of those who are too busy, right in the thick of life, struggling to pay for power, stressing at the supermarket checkout that their card might decline, or putting $10 into the car as it's all they have left to pay for the week. I stood for council to be their voice, the voice of those who did not come here today. As councillors, we were all elected to balance what we hear out there with what we hear in this place and make considered, thoughtful decisions that impact those living here today and those who will live here in generations to come. It can be a hard balance. We can't rob the future by making cuts on core business, but we can also not afford to gold plate the future at the expense of current generations. When you stop to think about what it is about Carterton that makes you choose to live here, what is it? I think for most of us, the reason we live our lives here is for the people. We shape our lives not around town features, but around those we live here with. It is for the people of Carterton we make these decisions, the people here today and the people yet to come, the people who are currently asking council to cut costs. But clearly it is falling on deaf ears. Are you really listening? Today, New Zealand's economic outlook is a mess. The recently released OECD economic report paints a grim picture. Our economy has slowed with high interest rates and inflation. Nationwide belt tightening is occurring and layoffs are being seen not only in the beehive and among the lanyard class of Wellington, but here in our community, in our local business, and for some in their own homes too. Yet our council continues to employ more staff, raise their wages and spend on nice to haves. With this bleak picture of the economic times we exist in, our council needs to act with the financial discipline and restraint that individual families are having to do. Carterton Council needs to be seen as being in step with the concerns of our people, ensuring their needs are catered for, but at a price they can afford to pay. It is the people in this town that make it what it is. Let this council not be another cost kneecapping them and their progress. Council needs to help those in our community to shape a town vibrant and prosperous. But it is not the council's job to create the town. We're here to serve the town. We need to move at a pace in step with the growth of our town and not leapfrog those who are already struggling to pay the bills. In my written submission, I mentioned population growth as a key concern with regards to the future planning of our town, namely that growth has near stagnated and the future projections and growth are weak. We also have an ageing population with a fixed income. These two factors cannot be ignored. As costs rise faster than the population grows, we get into deep water fast. While our town isn't growing, our council shouldn't be either. Councils only exist to serve their people. They do not exist to serve themselves. I will say this again. Councils only exist to serve their people. Carterton Council is doing a disservice to our community. While my voice is only one at this table, I speak confidently with the backing of the residents who voted me in. I campaigned on the belief that rates in Carterton are too high, and their continual growth shows very poor governance and poor prioritisation. I am only one voice. I cannot stop this council spending on my own. My written submission has meant that this council are using a technicality to exclude me from voicing the ratepayers' concerns. I was elected, as each of you were, to advocate strongly for the things that I campaigned on. I have consistently spoken out in council meetings and in every workshop on rates affordability. I am here for that purpose. I speak to council today to remind each of you I was not the only voice who campaigned on rates affordability. I have submitted today not to sway councillors to vote for or against any one thing. I, like you, came here today to listen to our community before making any decisions. It was undemocratic that I was thrown out this morning without a council vote and unable to hear my ratepayers' concerns and raise the questions that I was elected to ask. As an elected representative, we are expected to have an open mind. We are not required to have an empty one. While council will claim I was excluded based on advice, it is an excuse to get me out of this room. This council was elected with a mandate to take rates affordability seriously. We as councillors need to echo the sentiments we are hearing outside of the building and not focus on the voices inside this echo chamber.
7 minutes.
Rates pressure is too high. Thank you, Robin. Since being elected to council, I have continually asked questions. Questions of management, questions of those who speak to council, questions to my fellow councillors. I am constantly seeking to understand more about what this council does, why it does it, and how much it costs. I don't have all the answers, but I know I was elected to ask for them. My written submission did not show I had a predetermined position. I submitted to the long-term plan because I am engaged. I submitted because I care about the future of our region. I submitted because I feel ratepayers who are hurting need a voice at this table. Rates increases of this level are not only untenable, they are an embarrassment. I could sit here and list all the examples of wasteful spending that are outlined in the documents, but my fight isn't with the lists of nice to haves and projects that are included in this long-term plan. My fight is with my fellow councillors who were elected to bring costs down. Listen to the people. There has been a flurry of emails flying around this place concerned that my submission and involvement could result in our long-term plan being judicially reviewed. So on that note, I would like to conclude my submission by means of a question. Will this council's long-term plan not be open to judicial review when the actual rates number is released? Thank you.
Thank you, Grace. And obviously, as a submitter, you know that asking questions of the hearings panel, the question doesn't get answered.
No problem. It's on the record.
Absolutely. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Fellow committee members, does anyone have any questions for Grace in relation to her submission?
Thank you for your time.
I have one question, sorry. Just in your written submission, You stated that the event centre continues to be a significant cost burden to ratepayers and that capex spending of over 1.1 million in the first 3 years of the LTP is a misappropriation of spending / borrowing.
Sure.
The general understanding of misappropriation is the act of stealing something that you've been asked to take care of and using for yourself. Just a question, how do you believe that council's misappropriated spending or borrowing? And as an elected member, if you do feel that's the case, what action has been taken to follow up or report this?
That's a great question. I would like to alleviate your concerns. If I felt as an elected councillor that council was stealing money, I would not be standing here at the long-term plan submitting it. I would be escalating it higher. That is not what I was saying when I said there was a misappropriation. I was merely saying that the priorities of spending are incorrect.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that because I have had questions come through as well. And I guess on top of that, just to alleviate for me, I'd actually would like to ask our CE, can you provide assurance that there hasn't been any misappropriation, please?
I can indeed. Then I will ask.
Can I? So through the chair, Ron? Yes.
Thank you. Am I correct? Would I be correct in interpreting the context in which that word was used was not targeting or assuming or asserting that people had been stealing, embezzling money, that it was just inappropriately appropriated?
Correct.
Would that have been a better word?
Absolutely.
That's why I was clarifying wording on it.
Accusations around embezzlement are inflammatory and incorrect.
Okay, the time bell has gone. Thank you so much for your submission, Grace. And you are more than welcome to stay, as some people have, and listen to all the hearings and the deliberations tomorrow. Our next submitter that we have up, and our final one for our lunch break, is Michael Hewison, and he is submitter number 119. Yeah. So Michael, 10 minutes total.
Yep. No, I think it'll be.
So we'll let you know when 7 minutes is up, and then if you'd like any questions.
And then I'll email a copy to Robin. I've just added a couple of words onto it. So thank you for the time.
Yeah.
So my submission is based around the assets and the community and its ability to pay. 15% is a big increase, and I know there are many other councils with similar numbers. This does not make any of these palatable. Last government's added costs everywhere without many in the community appreciating what the short, medium and longer term cost implications would be. Some bribe money was handed around, but even that was to be debt funded central government level. And that, you know that through Three Waters and stuff like that. Clearly no real sensitivity or risk analysis was completed for any of this. It was just chucking confetti out. On top of this, CDC has had, and is no reflection on the people in here now. Bonds cost go from 6 million to 15+ million, water tanks 0.6 to 1.2, prior clock towers, probably other things. So while I know these will be debt funded, the interest in principle still needs to be found, and in a high interest rate environment. There is also an opportunity cost associated with this, because if you had to get a bigger loan, then it means you can't loan for something else, or it pushes you up against your loan ceiling or whatever that might be. So we are now where we are, and we can't unravel that. I think do one less project, and what you do must be done well. Get a project front end so that things happen on time, on budget and on spec. So I've always argued that whether I'm here in this room or whether I've been in project management or engineering or management roles in large companies, that you're better to do one thing less, but the things that you do it well, and you understand what you're doing before you flick the switch. Because if you don't, I've just listed where you end up. Rate increase gives a net increase of about 10%, and that depends on the rate of inflation you use. So inflation was 6%, in this document it refers to 4.7. So I've just said 15 minus 6, but a little bit, so rough 10%. So there's quite a big chunk of money. And looking through here, and I've only done all of this very quickly, it looks like the rate takes something in the 20, 25 million sort of range. So if you've got You know, these numbers are big numbers, but the overruns are really big numbers relative to the overall income. So there's something, a mix there. Income's not increasing by this amount. Many are on fixed incomes. I guess the last speaker touched on that a little bit, and I'm sure many others have. Hence, many will be going backwards, and that'll be in real terms, not in any other way. Unfortunately, now it is the time for some very hard decisions, and I guess that's, and I added here, as part of easing council's way out of a hole. So everything's gone into this big black hole, and the numbers have gone AWOL big time. And so somehow or other, you've got to get out of that. And do you do it gradually, or do you just take one step, or how do you do that? And there are some problems there. So now we get to the options. Transport. Well, I agreed with the preferred option, but would hope that the actual outcome might be preferred plus. So I'm hoping that through technology, good luck, good management, good whatever else, that things will work out better, not worse. And that because clearly the infrastructure needs to be But and one of the things I put here, intersections, well, you need to talk to the police to stop being soft. You know, if you stuff up in an intersection, that's your problem. You need to pay for it. And if that's a fine or a loss of your license, tough, do it. I regularly go through the intersection at Parkvale Hall. So I'm going through a giveaway sign. There's a stop sign coming from my left. And the number of vehicles I see roll or even drive straight through that stop sign with impunity. It is really, really bad. I've seen that happen on Perry's Road when I'm on East Heritai Road, and also with Hughes Line. People go through the bloody thing at open road speed. You know, there was a car coming along Perry's Road, and I was watching it, and I was heading west on East Heritai Road. I was in my Land Cruiser, but I didn't want to crunch that. And so I eased back a little bit and I watched this car, and then I slowed a bit more, tooted my horn as they flashed past in front of me, and the guy in the passenger seat looked and said, oh shit, you know, because there was this bloody great thing ready to drive through his door, but I wasn't going to do that because I was driving defensively. So you can do things and things can happen. So I think there needs to be a strong push that there's got to be a much harder nosed approach to that, and drivers can't be allowed to be slack anymore. Wastewater, well, clearly you need to meet compliance with whatever the resource consent conditions are, and being a little bit cheeky and knowing where you get that from, I'm sort of put a bit of a barb in here, condition on the assumption that conditions are fair and reasonable, and I do question that, whoever gives those bloody consents out, but anyhow. So need to be pragmatic. Doing nothing will only mean you go backwards faster, and it is likely that costs will not be cheaper than now. Now, I temper that a little bit because clearly through the industry that I work in, I'm hearing things and seeing things are slowing and things are getting tighter, tougher. So it's likely that the next 12, 18 months, maybe 2 years, are not going to be as easy as they have been before us. They're going to be much harder. And so there will be a lot more sharper pencils out there. So there might be an opportunity there. Okay. So looking through the run sheet, and there's a few familiar names there. So for my sins, I've been sort of roped in as a bit of a technical expert, project management, procurement person by the Carterton Indoor Swim Club to work through how they might put together a project that's fit for purpose, cost effective, and all of those sorts of things. So I guess, I see on the run sheet, there's lots of people who have talked about that, so I'll support that one. And then there was a lady, Rosie Rogers, here too before, Destination Wairarapa. So my wife is president of the Fell Locomotive Museum in Featherston. And so we have noticed a big increase in tourists in the last year, lots more people coming to the Wairarapa, lots of tours, and many of those are local people within the Greater New Zealand touring around, but also overseas people as well. And in fact, this last weekend, we had a book launch at the museum. So there are a lot more people around, and even though we're a fully volunteer organisation and our only income is what we charge through the door and through selling a few things, we're able to run it in a focused manner to keep it going properly. you know, we're seeing this and it's sort of working out really well. So, and we are a member of Destination Wairarapa. So they do a lot of good work. I know some might think because they don't see it, but it is happening behind the scenes and at a global scale relative to the size of New Zealand. So, and that's it.
Thank you. We have 1 minute if anybody would like questions. Michael, thank you for your submission on your personal submission and support of the indoor pools of Destination Wairarapa.
Yep.
Really appreciate your time this afternoon now.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. See you later.
This brings us to our lunch break. We have 30 minutes scheduled for lunch. So we will reconvene 10 minutes later from our agenda and reconvene at 1 o'clock.
Perfect.